History remembers emperors draped in silk, generals astride horses, and monarchs commanding armies with a single word. But hidden in its shadows are other kinds of warriors, men who never wore crowns, never rode into battle with an army behind them, and never sought statues or songs. They didn't fight for land or gold. They fought for something far more dangerous: an idea. One such man lived not in a palace but in a classroom. He didn't carry a sword, he carried chalk. He wasn't a commander, he was a school teacher. But what he did would leave an empire trembling. His name was Surya Sen. And this is the untold story of a man who waged war with wisdom, fire, and a band of teenagers. A man who challenged the British Empire with nothing but a plan, a cause, and unshakable courage. It was 1930. India was under colonial rule. For nearly 2 centuries, the British had bled the country dry, stealing resources, dividing communities, and crushing rebellion with the cold efficiency of empire. The Union Jack flew over government buildings. British officers strutted through Indian cities like they owned them. And in many ways they did. In the eastern region of Chittagong, now in modern-day Bangladesh, life moved under this shadow. Taxes were high, food was scarce, and the streets echoed with the quiet despair of a silenced people. But in the heart of this city lived a quiet man with burning eyes. Surya Sen, known to his students as Masterda, wasn't a politician. He wasn't a military leader. He was a school teacher, ordinary on the outside, but carrying inside him a revolutionary flame. He believed India didn't need speeches or more petitions. It needed action. And so in secret, he began gathering students, workers, and everyday citizens, not to protest, but to fight, but not recklessly. Surya Sen was brilliant, strategic, methodical. He studied railway timetables, memorized guard rotations, tracked telegraph patterns, and he crafted a plan so bold, so precise, it seemed impossible. He wouldn't attack a symbol. He'd strike the empire where it bled, its weapons. The target? The Chittagong Armoury, a fortified British military depot stocked with rifles, ammunition, and the tools of control. To take it would mean more than just stealing guns. It would send a signal. India could fight back. On the night of April 18, 1930, Surya Sen led 64 revolutionaries, most of them barely adults. In a history, they split into groups. Each team had a mission: cut telegraph lines, seize the armory, raise the Indian flag, and they did. They moved like shadows through the streets, silencing guards, disabling communications, storming the armory with grit and precision. Within hours, the mission was complete. The Indian flag flew over British guns. It was the first time in British India that an armed rebellion had captured and held a military installation. No colonial governor saw it coming. No British officer believed it possible. But it happened because one teacher believed. But the empire doesn't forget. Within hours, British reinforcements stormed Chittagong. Surya Sen and his fighters didn't run. They retreated into the Jalalabad hills, thick with jungle and terrain too wild for tanks or heavy cavalry. For 4 days, the revolutionaries fought like ghosts, popping out of the shadows, striking, disappearing again. They were outgunned, outnumbered, underfed, but not outwilled. Stories still echo of 14-year-old boys holding rifles twice their size, of young women disguising themselves as widows to pass enemy checkpoints, of children charging machine guns to buy seconds for their comrades to escape. They were students, not soldiers, but they held the line. Eventually, British forces overwhelmed the hills. Dozens were captured, many were killed, but Surya Sen vanished. For 3 years, the British searched, but he had disappeared into the wind, changing names, sleeping on floors, hiding among peasants and farmers. But never idle. From underground, he rebuilt his network. He trained new recruits. He passed messages by lantern light, taught chemistry by day and revolution by night. To the people, he became a legend. To the British, he became a ghost. But betrayal doesn't need bullets. In 1933, a man tipped off the authorities. The price of his loyalty? Cash and safety. British troops stormed a safe house in Kerala and finally found their ghost, thin, calm, and smiling. But the British wanted more than an arrest. They wanted a lesson. What followed is among the cruelest pages in colonial history. Before his execution, Surya Sen was tortured for days. They broke his teeth, crushed his limbs with iron rods. They wanted to make sure he couldn't walk proudly to the gallows, couldn't speak loudly, couldn't stand tall. But even in agony, he didn't beg. In a final letter smuggled from prison, he wrote, "My body will perish, but the cause will live on. Carry the flame. Never surrender. Never forget." On January 12th of 1934, at the age of just 39, Surya Sen was hanged. His body was dumped in the Bay of Bengal. No grave, no funeral, no monument, because the British feared what even his memory could ignite. But you can't drown a legacy. Surya Sen became a myth, whispered across generations, in classrooms, in marketplaces, in revolutions yet to come. He wasn't the kind of warrior who rode into battle with flags. He didn't wear armor. He didn't command legions. But in a quiet moment under a monsoon sky, he stood up, and the empire blinked. When we talk about freedom, we often talk about big names. We forget the teachers, the teenagers, the ghosts in the jungle. But maybe that's what makes this story worth telling. Surya Sen didn't just fight an empire. He proved that sometimes a man with a plan and nothing to lose is more dangerous than any army. He wasn't a king, but he ruled hearts. He wasn't a soldier, but he led warriors. And he didn't live to see India free, but he died knowing he lit the match. Like this video if you believe history belongs to the brave. Comment below. Should Surya Sen be honored as one of the greatest revolutionaries of all time? Share this with someone who thinks revolutions only need guns. Subscribe for more forgotten legends, because the greatest warriors aren't always remembered in books. Sometimes they live on in the silence they left behind and the fire they started.